All right, third graders, before spring break, we were touching on a little bit of telling time to the nearest hour and to the nearest half hour. So by looking at this page, point to the clock that shows you the time digitally on a digital clock. Now point to a clock that shows you the time on an analog clock. Think about the difference between an analog clock and just seeing it on a digital clock. All right, we're going to go to the next slide. Let me see if I can scoot this up a little bit. So this is an analog clock, obviously, because it has a face with numbers and hands in order to show you the time, okay? Now, I know we talked about this before, but just to reference it again, the short hand is the hour hand, and the long hand is the minute hand. One way to remember which is which, the word hour is short, and the word minute is long. Okay, so the hour hand is always going to be shorter, the minute hand is always going to be longer. It's a good way to remember. All right, we touched on fractions right before we had to start learning from home. So we're going to be touching on those even though we're working on a clock, okay? So we know the words half and we know the words quarter. So if you look at these two illustrations down below, the circle or the clock that has been divided into fourths are actually quarters. How many quarters are in a dollar? Yes, there are 4. So if you look at the yellow shaded in part, that is 1/4 of the clock that has been shaded in. Then there are 3 other quarters of the clock that are not shaded in. Okay? Then look at the teal colored clock, and that is half. You can clearly see that half of it has been shaded in. So we're going to be using these words. We've been using half prior to this, half meaning that there's been 30 minutes. But today we're going to be working on quarter. All right. So we say something is half past when the minute hand is halfway around the clock. So when you think of that minute hand on the 6, meaning that it's 30, something 30, then that means it's half past because it's already halfway past that old clock time, okay? So halfway around the clock is the 6, and this means 30 minutes past. So let's go ahead and take a look at the yellow clock here. Let me see if I can get a writing tool of some sort. I don't use this application very often. Saying that's text and that's not what I want. Okay, here we go, I think. All right, so it already has a red line going down. You can see that. Okay, I'm going to divide it into fourths. Okay, so this would be half, or not half, sorry, quarter, your first quarter. This would be your second quarter. This would be your third quarter. And this would be your fourth quarter. Okay, but right now we're working on half past. So if you go from the 12 all the way around to the 6, and you think of it fraction wise, all of this is shaded in. That is half of the clock, okay? And it was also showing you that the hour hand is a little bit past the 4. So it is 4:30 or half past 4. Okay? And when we type that, let's see if I can get a text box. We would say 4:30 7:30 because you have to be able to type it exactly the way you would see it digitally. Now, when we say it 4:30, you would just orally say that unless it's asking you to be putting down both in words and numbers. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the next one. Let me get my pen back. Okay, so again, I'm going to divide it here. Okay, this has already been passed, so it's 1/2 already. We need to look at our hour hand. It's between the 9 and the 10, so it is not quite 10 o'clock yet. So it's 9:30. 9:30. Okay, and then if we were to put that into numbers, we would have to say if it's between the 9 and the 10 and it's not quite 10 o'clock, that means it's 9:30. Okay, let's look at the next one. Let me get my pen back. Let me divide it. Okay, it's already gone past all of these. All right. My hour hand is between the 7 and the 8, so it's not quite 8 o'clock yet. So it's 7:30 or 7:30. All right, let's go ahead and go on to our next slide. Okay, remember, as the minute hand is moving around the clock, the hour hand is moving slowly as well. So when the minute hand is halfway around the clock, or on the 6, the hour hand will be halfway between the hours. All right, let's go ahead and read this one, the purple one, together. Look at the hour hand first. It's between the 1 and the 2, so it's not quite 2 o'clock. So it's 1 what? Yes, that is correct. It is 1:30 or 1:30. Okay, you go ahead and say the green one. Yes, that is correct. It's not quite 8 o'clock, so it's 7:30 or 7:30. All right, let's keep moving on. All right, quarter past. We know that quarter means 1 piece out of 4. So if we divide our clock into fourths. So if we say the time is a quarter past, it means that the minute hand has passed a quarter of the clock. Okay, so you see these red lines here, and that's what it's wanting to point out to you. So we're going to divide this clock into fourths. Okay, so basically every 15 minutes is going to be a quarter. Remember, this is our first quarter, this is our second quarter, this is our third quarter, and this is our fourth quarter. Now, we don't have to look at the third quarter or the fourth quarter in this clock because the minute hand and the hour hand are both not in those sections. Okay, so if I'm looking at the hour hand, it looks to be a little bit past the 5. Do you see it there? So it's not quite 6 o'clock, so it's 5 something. Okay, now I know that I can count by 5s. So 5, 10, 15. So if I were to write this using numbers, I would put 5:15. But I also want to think of it as a quarter past. It's a quarter past what? Yes, that is correct. It is a quarter past 5. It is a quarter past 5, okay? Because it is 5, 10, 15 minutes. That means if this quarter has already passed. So it's a quarter past 5. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So let's look at these. It says, notice how the hour hand has moved a little too. So it's a quarter of the way between the hours. So let's go ahead and look at the yellow one. Okay, I'm going to divide this into quarters or into fourths, partition it. Okay, we need to only look here and here. Okay, so it's between the 4 and the 5. It's not quite yet on 5 o'clock, so I know it's 4 something. Okay, what time is it? That is correct. It is 4:15. And then how else can we say that? It's a quarter past what? Yes, it's a quarter past 4. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the blue one. Let me get my pen back choose a different color, divide it into fourths or into quarters, okay? This time, the minute hand has stayed the same. We've only gone a quarter, but the hour hand is between the 10 and the 11, so it's not quite 11 o'clock. So it's 10:15 or a quarter past 10. Okay, so I'm going to write this one. Let me make it smaller. I don't know what just happened. I feel like it was about to tell me that I don't have time, but I do have time, so I don't know what that was saying. Okay, moving on. Next clock, the pink one. All right, let me get my pen back. Okay, divide this one into quarters or partition it. Sorry, my line was a little squiggly there. So it's again, my minute hand is still on the same number. So it's a quarter past what? Yes, that is correct, 12. Okay, it's not quite to the 1 o'clock yet. When I type, I must be hitting something, so my screen is doing some funky things. Hopefully this video will be okay though. Okay, moving on to the next one. We say the time is 1:45 when the minute hand only has 1/4 of the clock left to go until the next hour. When we say what time it is, 1:45, we need to say what hour the hour hand is heading towards. Okay, so here, let me get my pen back. Divide it into fourths, partition it into quarters. Okay, we have our first quarter, which we're not looking at, our second quarter, which we're also not looking at, our third quarter, and our fourth quarter. Now the hour hand is between the 11 and 12, so I know it's not quite 12 o'clock, so I know it's 11. But we've already gone past this. We've already gone past this. And we've already gone past this. So for this one, you're going to be saying 1:45. Remember these words up here, okay? Because we want to know what time is it about to be. It's 1:45. It is almost 12 o'clock. So you can't say 1/4 past because the minute hand is not on the 3. It's not on the 15. So you would have to say 1:45 because in 15 minutes, it will be 12 o'clock. So there's two different ways to say things, either 1/4 or 1/4 past. All right, we're going to practice on these clocks. So go ahead and mentally and visually partition this into quarters. Now this one, the minute hand is on the 9. I'm looking at the blue one, the minute hand is on the 9. And I'm looking at the pink one, and the minute hand is also on the 9. So for all of these, are we going to be saying 1/4 or 1/4 past? You are correct. We are going to be saying 1/4 because it's about to be a different time, okay? So yes, on the yellow clock, it is 4:45, but in 15 minutes, it's about to be 5 o'clock, okay? So for this one, we would need to say, you are correct, it's 7:45. It's not quite 8 o'clock yet, but it's about to be. Okay, now let's look at the pink one. All right, let's look at this last slide. I don't have very many seconds left to do these with you, but let's go ahead and look at the green one, and we'll just, oops, it already has the times for you, darn it. Okay, well, that's okay. We'll just look at the green one. So it's 12:15, and the reason why is because that minute hand is on the 3. Okay, it's only gone 1/4 past, meaning 15 minutes, because remember, every quarter is 15 minutes. Okay, let's look to the right of it, which is the pink clock. That one isn't anything that we've been working on right now today, but this is from prior to spring break. So yes, that is 5 o'clock, and you should already know that. Moving on to the orange one. Okay, the hour hand is between the 10 and the 11, meaning it's almost 11 o'clock. So it's a quarter to 11. It's almost 11.